Hello and welcome along everybody to another version of RPL Weekend Recap. And once again, as always, we'll be debating the round 3 hot topics for all the RPL tiers. The month of November is in the books and we have a lot to talk about, and this shall be fun. So, our first race of the weekend was Tier 3, and just to recap you folks, 2 topics per tier that we debate with you the viewer, and you give us your thoughts as well. And like I said, let us know what you think. Some of this also previewing the up and coming races to go with it. Like we said, we started the weekend out in Tier 3, racing in Azerbaijan for only the second time in this tier. We expected chaos, and we didn't get as much as I thought we would. However, we still got quite a bit of chaos. To no surprise, Alex Norris was fast in qualifying, and he was fast enough in the race just to barely claim victory. Our first topic is about Alex Norris. And the question is, will he achieve the record of 4 consecutive Tier 3 poles? Silverstone, home race for him. Also, with Alex Norris's case, very fast driver in qualifying. Did it again in Baku. Is it fair to say that he can get 4 in a row for poles? I think the answer has to be yes for now. I don't see anybody good enough, at least in qualifying yet, to challenge him for a 4th straight pole. But things can obviously change. He was 2.5 tenths out of Fusion, 6 tenths ahead of his teammate who was 3rd best. It all depends on what Egg says about him being in the tier next week or not. I know Jack, the owner, who has more authority, said Alex wouldn't be moved, but it all does also come down to the tier coordinator having final word, or the owner Jack having final word. That's what it's all going to depend on. If Jack's word is the case there, then we have a reason to debate it. If Egg's opinion is of the matter that Alex Norris should be moved to tier 2, then we have no point debating this topic. Is it early to be talking about this? Yes, especially considering the time and day that we are recording this. For those interested, it's just a few hours after the conclusion of the tier 1 race. But Alex Norris, in my eyes, will achieve a 4th consecutive tier 3 pole, and some may argue his qualifying pace probably reminiscent to what Cookie has been able to do for his qualifying pace in Tier 1. Alex Norris backing his 3 poles up with 1 win. Not unprecedented here in RPL. You know who else has done similar stuff? TSR Cryptic. And he actually turned out to be a Tier 2 champion, so we could see interesting stuff happen there. But yes, Alex Norris can achieve the record of 4 consecutive Tier 3 poles this weekend in Silverstone. Our next debating topic, folks, is a big one, and we have to talk about this team because they are the reigning Constructors Champions. Not only are they the reigning Constructors Champions, but they're the only team that has won Tier 3 Constructors Championships. That is Red Bull. And the debating topic question is, have Red Bull now hit rock bottom in this tier? And my answer is yes. There is no doubt in my mind that they have. Without AMS Devon, this team is nothing right now. You've got JNR, who is a full-time VCAR driver, getting the call up to race for Red Bull twice now. His luck has not been great. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but he is a VCAR driver for a reason. They're teaching him everything they can to try and be a good Tier 3 driver. And on his debut weekend in the Alpine, he showed quite a bit of promise last season. But since then, we've not seen that same pace replicated from that driver. Spangley, alongside Devon, I think he's had 2 goes at this. he's not been awful. He's been alright. But he's not going to outpace that car, the likes of which Devin did in China. P19 to P1, very impressive stuff. And even when Beatnik reserved in Bahrain, it's shown that someone from the outside that Red Bull can pull in last moment is not going to do what they need them to do. Beatnik did do that with a little bit of a gift. Safety car, that was. And was on the wrong strategy to begin with. So it's a really tough one, but they have hit rock bottom in this tier. JNR, full-time V-Carb driver for a reason. Noah Boy, he's off the pace. Red Bull driver, part of the academy, V-Carb full-time. Hasn't had the chance to race Red Bull. There's a reason for that, but he is learning in the V-Carb, doing all he can to get up to grips with this game, and then get back to his old pace that he had when he first joined RPL as a Tier 2 driver. And for JNR's case, I want to see him get back to that pace he was doing, I believe it was in Brazil maybe, last season when he debuted in the Alpine. Because if he can do that, he will do what Red Bull needs in order for them to win another Constructors' Championship. But I don't even think that's a question right now. They don't even have a chance, realistically. It's between McLaren and Ferrari. Red Bull aren't in that conversation anymore. So, yeah, in my opinion, in terms of fighting as a team to win the Constructors' Championship, they have hit rock bottom. And this is not what we expected, especially heading into the season. We expected them to at least contend for this. They're not even close. They need to do a lot of things to get back to where they used to be here for Tier 3. And with that, we go to the next part of the weekend, where in Tier 2 we saw quite a good race in Portimao, to say the least. And I'm sure we'll see the same again in Austria this week. George Williams won for a 4th straight time and an 8th time in the last 10 tries. The race is in Austria this week, and the question is about George Alp Williams. Is he beatable? The answer is yes. But his luck and his skills are very similar to what the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers this year can do. If you're an American football fan, you'll understand what I'm referencing. The Kansas City Chiefs seem to have the luck of the draw always go their way, and George Williams has had the same there as well. But when you get the luck that George has had, you also have to be very special at what you do, and George is very special at what he's done. He went from being a very mid-tier 2 driver before he got banned from Tier 2 for 2 seasons. In Season 12, can't even fight in the points for Williams after Owen, a previous rival of his, and someone he battled for a title multiple times. Them two always went back and forth, toe-to-toe for race victories. He couldn't even get points into Williams in the past to end Season 12, where Owen could get a podium and contend top 8 consistently in that car. Yeah, George was on a downfall. He's recovered. Honestly, driver of this game, no doubt. But is he beatable is the question. The answer is yes. Just because he's got the fastest car does not mean he's always going to win. Polo was right there in China. Foles was right there in Portimao. And everybody else was right there in Bahrain. But in order to beat George, you have to outsmart him. You have to find a way to beat him on the last lap. Because he is just always finding a way. Kind of like Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs do, but it's true. It really is. And he's not getting the refs on his side so much either, because he has had times where George has been penalized due to his own racecraft. The only time he really should have been and he wasn't was Tier 3 Mexico 2 seasons prior. But again, George is doing a great job. It needs to be studied how he's done this. And he deserves all the credit in the world. But he is beatable, in fact, to clarify. You just got to outsmart him in order to do it. Now the question is, which drive was the most unexpected one in Portimao? Josh getting Sauber's first points of the season. Foles getting a provisional for now, and could be. Podium for Red Bull. Or Maestro's performance for Mercedes. I'm crossing one out immediately. Foles for Red Bull, we expected to be on the podium. He got his first. Congrats there. If it stands, of course. He didn't really have the pace in the first half, but He had us fooled in the first half. He got us in the second half. Very impressive there. If I were to give a drive that was the most under the radar, it'd be Josh. But it was expected after qualifying for him to at least get a point or two for Sauber. Not a P8 like he did. Very well done there. And he had time away from the game, so congrats to him. The most unexpected one was Midfield Maestro. He was nowhere in qualifying for Mercedes. Had no chance in the race at all to finish top 8. And he did just that. He finished 6th for the team. A great result there from Midfield Maestro. Doing the opposite strategy, doing something very unorthodox, and doing what he needed to get the team and himself the points that he deserved, that he was never going to get if he didn't do something like that. So that is the most unexpected drive, Midfield Maestro for Mercedes. There's not a lot to talk about with the most recent F2 race. I was not there for it today when we did race, or yesterday. Well, more days ago as we obviously are releasing this video. But nonetheless, there's a lot that needs to be talked about with this tier for these specific 2 topics. However, I want to try and chime it down into about less than 5 minutes. Dams. Are they the constructor's favorite? That's the topic here. The answer is yes. No matter who Skither has as his teammate, that is who helps this constructor's fight against a lineup like Egg and Luke, Jack and George, or whoever else it may be facing them. I thought it was going to be one of those other teams winning the constructors and taking the fight to whoever Skither was alongside. But that's not the case this season. Skither had Midfield Maestro starting out with him, and Midfield Maestro kept getting points for the team, and also was probably best the rest with Raza Gamer. Skither's consistent poles, sprint wins, fastest laps, and feature race victories is what's helping this team regardless of whatever the second driver does. It's not even matching what Jack and George or Egg and Luke do. It practically doesn't matter. Dams are the constructor's favorite, and they're looking at another title yet again for the team. No doubt in my mind they get another one. And Leo Lund raced for the team in Miami, so that's, I believe, who was supposed to race for the team to start off the season, but he had dropped down to a reserve role, if I'm correct. So that's why he's not full-time. If he was, it'd be a walk in the park, no doubt about it. Now I want to talk about one other topic that needs to be talked about for this tier a lot. And guys, I promise you, I would talk about this way, way more. But we just don't have enough time to. The debating topic for this is, does F2 have its own meaning anymore? And I ask this because back in the day, for the first 11 seasons of this tier, previous champions, they were pretty much knocked out of racing in this tier. You're a past champion, you move up. You don't get to race F2 anymore. Then at the end of season 11 onwards, past champions were allowed back. Now, George was mentioning before the race, this could potentially be F2's final race because of the lack of numbers, lack of interest. You're not seeing the 15 to 18 car grids in F2 you used to see back in the day, whether it be from season 9 or season 6, season 4, whatever season you look at, whether it's with champions, without champions. We've not had it bright and sparkling and wonderful for F2 in a long while. It's just been a very dry patch for the tier. I would hope we could find it once again because there was a lot of interest to bring this tier back, but then no one ends up racing it. You could claim because that's EA and Cody's with their game, it's not up to par with what people anticipated it would be, and well, if it was and the handling was the way people wanted it to be, then we would have more showing up each week, week in and week out. But another thing is, though, some people don't want to race with past champions being allowed. Some people do, some people don't. You're never going to please everybody. But I feel like part of F2's meaning that you could have with it, if you want to enforce any rules with it, is that You look at Skither, you look at Reese, who races from time to time, Jack, Luke, all those names, past champions. Have them race together for the constructors titles, but don't have them going for the drivers championship. You could enforce something like that, and maybe you get some more interest from drivers who want to win their first title. I would love to see something like that enforced. That would be very cool. Do I think we're going to get it? No. But it's up to George to do that if he wants to do it. And also, you got to know from the drivers, get a little transparency, like Jack was doing during the Tier 1 race, kind of giving us insight as to why the lobby got restarted. Give us some transparency on what you would do with F2 if you're not going to shut it down. Because clearly there's a lack of numbers, and you got to understand why that is. Is it the game? Is it the drivers not having interest in the cars? Is it that you're allowing past champions in? What is it? You got to find out from the drivers why some of them aren't racing. Are some just not able to make the times? There's a lot of reasons that could be. Another thing for F2 I think you could do if you're George in this situation is allow the current band drivers to race. Yes, I'm talking about SV, I'm talking about Gagi, I'm talking about a lot of others who were not allowed to race for a while, and you're probably thinking I'm crazy, lock me up, whatever. But I want you to understand here, George was allowed to race F2 and Tier 3 when he was banned from other tiers. Wavy had the same thing happen a while ago. I'm saying you do this because racing F1 cars in RPL should be a privilege. It should be a privilege for guys like SV when he gets unbanned, if he ever does, from racing. He's still in the server. Zora's now banned. Not sure how long that could stand. Leon was banned for a little bit. You have these drivers who are banned from racing, but still allowed to be in the league, race F2, and then if they get cleaner, they're allowed to race F1 cars again. Again, like I said, that should be a privilege. You also had a long time ago drivers who stayed exclusive to F2. BRT Griffiths, technically Titan, and even others. You have the interest there for F2 exclusively, but you don't have the interest there week in and week out. I think two of those ideas that I brought up could be something we could put in as a league, in my own opinion, but you gotta have the tier coordinators allow it to happen in order for it to be a thing. And I don't know if they're willing to or not. I would love to know George's thoughts or other thoughts from you guys as well. Tier 1 time. Time to talk about Tier 1. And Gecko recently just grabbed his first victory in 195 races. 195 races. 1,666 days, excuse me. Very impressive stuff there from Gecko. The question has to be asked, what's next for him and what's next for Red Bull as a whole? Well, first off, Gecko's win should not mean Egg or Reese get replaced. I just want to clarify. He said in his post-race interview, which we rarely give, we gave one to him, that he would want to stay in the V-Carb, vibe there, develop some racecraft, get better. He clearly has the pace, as he showed today, and he's shown in the past. He clearly has the racecraft when it's needed, but he was battling nobody. Let's see a race in the Red Bull when he's battling somebody and see if it stays the same. If it does, then maybe you do trade him with an Egg or a Reese. But Egg was doing a great job, started off the season with a podium in Bahrain, crashed in Jeddah. I really would have loved to see what he could have done if it weren't for that. Reese had the qualifying ban in Australia, came from the back of the grid, good drive there, but you do nothing without DRS. Jeddah, Reese had a chance. Bahrain, Reese didn't race. You really don't have anything representative to replace Reese or Egg with. Keep it as it is. What does it mean for Red Bull as a constructors? Wise now? Well, it means that they actually have a better start than last season in terms of winning and being closer to the championship lead than they did than last season. But the problem is they've also got people closer to them compared to them being closer to the top. Which brings me to my next point. Will this be the first Tier 1 season we have a constructors battle go down to the final race for the first time? My answer is yes, based on everything happening right now. Doesn't matter what Leo Lund does being in the Williams, or what could be the Aston again, depending on if things change. Doesn't matter what Ding does in the Aston, Cryptic does, Jack, TB. I mean, unless Jack and TB come blitzing out and end up being super consistent compared to teams in the McLaren, I do see this constructors race going down to the wire. Whether that's with the current 5 teams we have going for it now, whether it be Aston, McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari all at it, or only 2 of them by the end. But I do see this constructors battle going down to the wire, going down to the final race. Is it with 2 or 5? It's probably with 2. Which 2 now becomes a question. I say you take the Ferrari lineup out of it. Cookie has qualifying pace only most times. Minico has a lot of race pace. But they just have no luck and can't stay out of incidents either. Red Bull, I think they have a legitimate chance. They just have to stay consistent and they have to get wins regardless of who's in the car. Mercedes, I don't know. McLaren are definitely there. Aston have the advantage based on points, but Ding has got to stop getting penalties if they want to actually have a chance for the constructors. I think Cryptic's a good shout, though. He did great in Australia, and, well, did great in Bahrain as well, but was not on the Mercedes. He was in the, was in the Mercedes, not the Aston that day. So, yes, this constructors race goes down to the final race for the first time in Tier 1. That will happen, again, for the first time. With who? McLaren and someone else. They don't have the dominant lineup like we thought, I think. But it's still early on. You just don't know. And give us your thoughts down below. What do you think will happen here for the really predictions, I guess you could say, that I have here, and also debating topics for Week 3's recap of RPL's races we had. All the tracks we showed you on our screen while talking about these topics is where we're at next week for the races. Tune in, RPL Formula 1 on Twitch. If you want to watch our races, we upload them to the YouTube weekly. We also have a Discord link for you to join the league if you want to do so there as well. Nonetheless, I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section for these topics we went over to recap the week and preview the next one. Until next time, folks, have a good night and have a good one. We hope to see you when we live stream our next races. See you then.